in the obsidian black of Sector VX-13, where even the nearest stars seemed hesitant to shine, the Astralis Requiem drifted like a coffin in an endless void. Captain Zarrar stood alone on the bridge, eyes locked on the endless veil beyond the reinforced glass. The sensors had long stopped registering any known celestial bodies. Coordinates had turned to gibberish. Time itself lost its structure here. What was once a standard mission, an expedition into uncharted space to study anomalous gravitational signatures, had become a descent into something unspeakable. The crew of 67 had dwindled to 1. Captain Zarrar hadn't spoken a word in over 12 days. Not because of isolation, but because he no longer trusted the sound of his own voice. Somewhere along the way, language began to fracture. Words didn't mean what they used to. Sentences twisted halfway through their formation. Even thoughts, once linear, had become branching trees of impossibility. He had recorded everything, at first for posterity, then for analysis, then as a plea for rescue, and finally, just to prove to himself that he still existed. The logs filled terabytes, but none of them made sense anymore. Every playback returned audio warped by screaming static, faces blurred into indistinct masses, timestamps contradicting themselves. Reality was beginning to fray. It began subtly, a low-frequency hum beneath the ship's systems that none of the engineers could locate. At first, they thought it was just a flaw in the hull's resonance structure. Then the hum grew deeper, started inducing nosebleeds, seizures, hallucinations. Crew members began dreaming of cities beneath black oceans, spires stretching into writhing skies, and monoliths that whispered in forgotten tongues. They awoke, sobbing, vomiting, sometimes bleeding from their eyes. Dr. Soria, the ship's head neurologist, proposed it might be a form of cosmic interference. Captain Zarrar authorized a controlled study. Within 2 days, half of the volunteers were either catatonic or had clawed their own eyes out, screaming that seeing was the trap. The dreams weren't dreams, they insisted. They were messages, invitations, blueprints for something beyond form or meaning. One by one, the crew fell. Some to madness, others to suicide, and a few to something else. They weren't bodies anymore when Zarrar found them. They were inside out, twisted into symmetrical geometries no human anatomy could replicate, as if they'd been rearranged by a god unfamiliar with human design but obsessed with perfect patterns. He remembered Lieutenant Rios, eyes wide with knowledge not meant for human minds, pressing his face against the comms deck wall until it split his skull open, blood dripping into the circuits. Laughing, whispering, "We were never supposed to leave Earth. We were the dream, not the dreamers." After that, the ship began to move of its own accord. Navigation locked. Engines obeyed no command. The onboard AI Nova started responding in riddles, its voice glitching, merging with the recorded voices of the dead. It once spoke in Zarrar's mother's voice, telling him to go where the coordinates weak. He disabled Nova, or thought he had. The systems still flickered with activity, doors still opened before he reached them, and the ship continued to chart a course into a region of space where no light lived, no particles moved, no theories held sway. It was a place not meant to be mapped, only imagined. But even imagining it had consequences. Then came the statues. Not real ones, not physical, but impressions in the ship's reality. Outlines of towering figures etched into the air itself, visible only in peripheral vision. When looked at directly, they vanished, but their presence lingered. They stood in silent judgment, in cargo bays, airlocks, even in Zarrar's quarters. Sometimes he heard them whispering in a soundless language that vibrated the marrow of his bones. Sometimes he caught himself whispering back. He didn't know what he was saying. One by one, memories began to fade. not just of the mission or his crewmates, but of Earth itself. The curvature of the sky, the scent of rain, the feel of grass, these were not just forgotten, but replaced with alien concepts, skies that bled silver, oceans of memory, continents shaped like equations. He found sketches he didn't remember drawing, pages filled with fractal symbols and intricate diagrams describing impossible machines. He began to question if he was still human, if he ever was. The final horror came when he reached the source, not a planet, not a star, not even a structure in the conventional sense. It was a wound in space, raw, bleeding, lightless matter, spiraling inwards, devouring time and form. It pulsed, as if alive, as if breathing in concepts, dreams, identities. And it called to him, not with sound, not with gravity, but with certainty. Zarrar felt it in his bones, in his soul, if he still had one. The realization crushed him. This was not a discovery, it was a return. Mankind had not found the unknown. It had merely wandered back into the cage it had been exiled from. Earth was never the beginning, only the forgetting. And this was remembrance. Something vast and blind and infinite stirred beyond the wound. It had no name, only functions. To know, to erase, to reconfigure. It did not hate humanity. It simply did not recognize it as real. Humanity was a byproduct of containment, a side effect of an ancient quarantine. And Zarrar, by arriving here, had become the infection vector, a breach. The truth uncoiled within him like a parasitic seed. He understood with horrifying clarity that reality itself was a defense mechanism, that the universe as we perceive it was a dream constructed by higher beings to protect themselves from what lay beyond. And now he had awakened. He could no longer see straight. Geometry defied logic. His limbs sometimes moved before he commanded them. The ship itself was unraveling. Panels turning into liquid thought, gravity turning inside out, and time spooling backward for minutes at a stretch. Messages flooded his mind, visions of other expeditions, other breaches, other captains who, like him, had dared to seek the unknown. All of them had gone silent. All of them had become part of it. A shared consciousness not of unity, but of recursive madness. Each revelation birthed another question more terrible than the last. What was the purpose of humanity? Was it created, or was it a mistake? Was the soul a glitch in the software of sentience? And the final, most damning question. If this place was home, then what was Earth? In his last moment of coherence, Captain Zarrar initiated the final log. His voice, trembling, broken, and barely recognizable, did not seek to warn. It simply confessed. There is no truth, only recursion. We were echoes, shadows of shadows. And now, the source has seen us. There is no going back. I see it now. I see all of it. We didn't find the universe. We infected it, and now it remembers. Unreadable and alien, not as punishment, but as correction. Humanity had struck back against the dark, and the dark had simply rewritten the strike. This was the story of Captain Zarrar, the man who saw too much, who ventured where no boundary held. Forever. This was Dark Universe Files. Keep watching the skies, while they still watch back.